down, pin our hopes to the ground, but we can work it out. 'Cause giving in is oh so hard, but love is at stake. Where there's a will, there's a way. Now if we only knew how, learning to rough, learning to laugh and fears, learning to fight through these years that bring us closer together. Learning to rough, learning the first golden rule, knowing that anything is possible. 'Cause nothing's gonna keep us from learning the ropes.
Greetings and salutations, everybody, and welcome back into Learning the Ropes. I'm XLJ, the OG, joined by my partner in crime, my brother from another mother, from parts unknown, Mr. B-Roll.
Oh, you see what I'm doing here is I'm testing your loyalty as a friend.
Yeah, I think I'm being pretty damn loyal, just saying. Oh, man, we have got a heck of an episode for you tonight. I am so freaking excited because we're talking about something we never have talked about on Learning the Ropes, amazingly. Impact Wrestling, which I don't think gets nearly enough credit. And we're going to kind of do a dive on that tonight because there's such a rich history of Impact. And we're going to get you ready. It's coming up here in a couple weeks is going to be Slammiversary from Impact Wrestling as well. But B-Roll, I am super stoked for this episode. It's going to be awesome. This is like probably my favorite era of TNA when I was watching TNA. So it is going to be awesome. How excited are you, my friend?
I mean, I am very excited. I will say I know some. I don't know a lot from this era. I would say I probably know more of the good versus the bad.
Well,
Um,
but there's a lot of good, and
Yes.
we're going to get into that tonight. But as always, when we start off our show, we got to start it off with a little palooza. So let's kick it off with, I got to think to myself, what the hell is on Cold TV this week? We've been so busy just with life in general, folks.
life and wrestling.
There's so much going on.
We had PW60.
You can catch a replay of PW60 from this past Monday. You can also catch a very special report from our good friend Light Skin Gaijin talking about Stardom's Sunshine event, which was an awesome event. If you haven't done so and you love Joshi Wrestling, or you want to get into Joshi Wrestling, you should definitely check it out. Check out his review and then check out Stardom.
He could be like our Joshi guide or something like that.
Dude, he is our Joshi guide, and I still want to know what a fucking impassioned fusion match is, damn it. One
I
day,
don't know, but
will
I feel like I need one. Like if that's like
yeah.
is that something that will like get you through a Monday or like what?
It sounds like it, man. I'm just saying, but nonetheless, you can check out his report over on Cole TV, and of course, we're here with you tonight. And of course, we got to plug that merch, right, Mr. B-Roll?
Get you some merch. I mean, I'm wearing my Samoa Joe shirt because I thought it was very fitting for tonight. But you know, you can get your exclusive Cole TV merch. You can get your Learning the Ropes merch, and much more all over on Sweet Doll Face Creations, BigCartel.com, and tons of other content creators over there as well. Go check it out. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, like we say, we've got a star-studded show tonight. We got a lot to cover. So let's bring our very special guest in first. Let's bring him in. He is the Wrestling Encyclopedia of Wrestletok, one MJDuplessis. What's up, brother?
What up, gang? How y'all doing?
We're doing pretty awesome. And of course, with us, you know him, you love him, the Wrestletok Drip God himself, Hambone. What's up, brother?
What is up, you fucking marks? Thanks for having me again, fellas.
Absolutely. And boys, go ahead.
I was going to say a couple housekeeping notes just per our conversations earlier that we had. If we randomly start talking about air conditioners, don't mind us. But no,
Y'all is
This,
hot as
this might
balls.
veer off into a home improvement podcast
Yeah.
like halfway through. So
No,
You
but in all seriousness, we had mentioned that, you know, depending on how many people we had in the room that were doing the views and then participating, and you know, that are probably tired of hearing me talk. I see that we have 5 viewers right now, so you know, as long as we
Tell your wife, tell your kids, tell your
tell
friends.
your wife, tell
bring 'em
your
on
kids.
over.
But we're thinking about having a little bit of fun tonight and doing some polls, bringing some polls back into it.
Not to be confused with the stripper pole. It's not that type of show,
Right.
folks.
oh well,
Unless you
I'm
pay
leaving
me
then. I
enough
thought
money.
it was
That's for
something
my
else.
OnlyFans.
I thought this
No.
was this podcast was something else. If that's not the case, then I'm leaving.
Thank you. Fuck you. Bye. No.
But yeah.
Oh man, but no, seriously, I am really stoked for this topic because Impact Wrestling is Pole Daddy Jones. Yeah, there you go. That's my stripper name on the side. But no, Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling, I think is one of those companies that to me it's awesome and amazing that it's still around because like when it started, dude, it was like hot fire, man. And then it went through a huge drought. The fact that it's standing strong now. And by the way, Impact Wrestling is the most slept on company, I think, in North America right now. They are fucking killing it weekly with their shows. Their roster is awesome. The matches are incredible. And if you ever get a chance to go to a show, it is well worth your money. Trust me. But guys, first I want to start off with what is your first thought when I say the initials TNA?
My head for the immediate thing that my head goes to is the X division.
110% agree. Because that X division is what set TNA apart, especially in the very early get-go. Because I mean, the X division, it wasn't like the cruiserweight division. I mean, the X division was beyond that because I mean, they literally listed as it like defined. It was like limitless, you know, essentially. Like I mean, it didn't matter weight class, none of that shit mattered. It was just the matter of the fact that like if you could wrestle, if you could go that style, then you were in that X division. What about you, Michael?
Innovation.
Yes.
X division, you had the crazy matches like the King of the Mountain. Yeah, they had so many things that hadn't been done. Now Elevation X, and especially in the pro wrestling business where like everything's been done before. The fact they were able to introduce new things in that era in the early 2000s, impressive.
Yeah. And you know me, you guys know me, I'm a stickler for the origins here. What I think is interesting is the time frame when they came in, because this is literally like a year after WCW gets shut down, ECW goes out of business, and there was really a void there. I mean, you did have Ring of Honor start up around that time frame, but I mean, they just weren't, you know, they were just an independent company, you know, and back then they didn't have streaming services, folks. So I mean, you had to do like tape or DVD trading essentially to get to watch Ring of Honor. But with Impact, if you look at it, or with TNA, I should say, early on, really. And Michael, you may remember the name of Jarrett's promotion, but and I don't think it was Global Force because that was years later. But remember, Jeff Jarrett did a series of shows over in Australia. They did some paper.
WWA.
Thank you. Yeah, WWA. So like
Yeah.
right after like
that was late 01, and then they were actually on a boat in Australia. It was him, his dad, Jeremy Borash, and Bob Ryder, who worked backstage for WCW. And Bob Ryder's the one that told him, "You guys might as well just start your own company."
yeah,
That was the summer of no worries, as Jeff Jarrett puts it.
Yes.
yeah.
And thus total non-stop action was born.
I see what you did there, and I like it. And yeah, I agree. Yeah, WWA wasn't that bad. I think they put on a total of 4 different pay-per-views, if I remember correctly. It was an interesting product because you combined guys that you know weren't working in WCW, ECW, and the WWF at the time too. So you had a little mix of everything. And if I remember correctly, I think on color commentary wasn't it Jerry Lawler, Mike Tenay, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, talk about unique pairs there. But as the story goes, it was discussed like, okay, why don't we just adopt like and do like a monthly or a weekly pay-per-view instead of TV, and you don't do a monthly pay-per-view, and thus like that the concept, if you think about it, it's actually pretty smart, especially that time frame. With like $10 a show, I think is what it was. I remember because I watched some of these pay-per-views back in the day. And of course, we got to start first and foremost and talk about the Asylum years in TNA. For those of you who don't know, the Asylum years essentially they shot from the fairgrounds in Nashville. I believe for the first 2 years of TNA's existence, right, Michael?
Except for the first 4 shows. The first
oh, really?
4 shows
Where were the first 4 at?
in Alabama.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. I'll be
Huntsville.
damned. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And I believe now correct me if I'm wrong here, but was the first show, is that where they did the Battle Royal?
Yeah.
And that's where Ken Shamrock won.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, it was interesting too, because it was like no TV deal. Let's just do a weekly pay-per-view, and they started getting a following. And I think a lot of it had to do with, I mean, there was a couple factors. One being like, us rabid wrestling fans, like we didn't have shit other than the WWF at the time. And like I say, you had to try really hard to watch Ring of Honor or live in that area. But, this is something new that I can gain access to on pay-per-view, and it's only $10. Sign me up. But I think like with those Asylum years, like you guys said, first and foremost, what really set Impact and TNA apart was the X Division. I mean, the very first matchup was in TNA history was AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn, and Low-Ki, right? Going up against, what was it, the Flying Elvises?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy Yang, Sonny Siaki, and Estrada?
Maybe. Yeah. But I think, like, let's say this, the most synonymous name with Impact Wrestling is by far AJ Styles. I mean, I think that AJ's the GOAT. He's the face of TNA wrestling. He always has been, and he always will, in my opinion. Because, yes, you could argue Jeff Jarrett, because, I mean, it was Jeff Jarrett's baby. It was his promotion. But, I mean, AJ Styles, man, dude, like, that's the guy who was, like, he was created in TNA wrestling, essentially. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
I mean, on a major level, I mean, you can say those early Ring of Honor, and then he had some indie shows that made a big deal on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But like on a major level, TNA.
Yeah. I mean, AJ definitely made his name in TNA over the last year or so at WCW that he was there. I mean, nobody, even with him being on WCW that last year, I don't feel like anybody really knew who AJ was until TNA came along.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. But I mean, and AJ Styles too was the very first, like, I mean, I think Jeff Jarrett and TNA, they knew what they had with him. They knew he was something special. And I mean, they immediately just strapped the rocket ship to him, and rightfully so, because I mean, right away he became the first ever Triple Crown winner in TNA by holding the World Championship, the TNA title, or the X Division title, and of course the tag team titles as well. But I mean, that's the very first guy I think of, and it will always be like that. And honestly, nothing's ever going to replace it. And I don't think there's a whole lot of fans out there that would argue that. Like, it's kind of like the equivalent in sports, folks, of like Peyton Manning. Yes, he played for the Broncos, but he's always going to be an Indianapolis Colt. You're always going to think of him first and foremost as a Colt. I think the same with AJ Styles. I'm always going to think you have to have me put him with any type of promotion, I'm going to go TNA for sure.
Yeah. I think the same thing with like Michael Jordan. Like, you think of him as a bull. You don't think of those random Washington Wizards years.
Yeah. No, and the thing is too, like, think of AJ Styles' career and his trajectory and his greatness. AJ Styles has year after year just gotten better and better and lived up to that moniker of phenomenal. I mean, this is the same guy who literally, the Undertaker, one of the greatest of all time, maybe the greatest of all time in a lot of people's opinions. His last match, he was like, I'm going to do it with you. I mean, if that doesn't tell you the greatness of AJ Styles, folks, I don't know what will. But
Yeah.
this is like, you look at AJ Styles in these TNA days and the stuff he was doing. It literally is phenomenal. I mean, it was just, he was doing stuff and shit that you just did not see at the time.
Yeah, and I think the fact, this is kind of off topic, but the fact that he's still going at such a high level, like I feel like we kind of like, at least for me personally, I feel like I kind of underappreciate him.
He definitely gets taken for granted now, being
Yeah.
in the game for so long.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think, I mean, we're talking a guy who's had like a 20-plus year career. And I mean, my God, just that early groundwork he did in TNA, like with the X Division, and like, and there's other great stars from that era we got to talk about too. I mean, I think Irish mentioned this one guy who got over huge there. We got to mention Ron Killings, aka R-Truth. I mean, Ron Killings had a phenomenal run in Impact Wrestling's or TNA Wrestling's early days.
Yeah.
A former two-time NWA heavyweight champion with them too.
I think the guy that I think of a lot, especially with these early years, that blew my mind because it was the first time I'd ever seen him in TNA, was Amazing Red.
Oh my God!
I'm so happy he gets brought up, or he got brought up.
Now, the first, like, so TNA, you know, I was a 15-year-old young Mark when TNA started, so I wasn't, you know, buying the weekly pay-per-views or anything like that. The way that I got exposed to TNA was that I went on LimeWire and I downloaded matches. And that is how I got into TNA. And the guy who blew my mind was Amazing Red. Stuff that people see now that they might feel like they see in every match. Amazing Red was doing that 20 years ago when nobody else was doing it, and you didn't even know that a human body could do it.
Okay, I gotta know. You mentioned LimeWire, so I gotta know, alongside TNA, what music were you downloading as well? Gotta know.
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't even think. I couldn't even think to tell you at this.
A little bit of everything, just because you could.
Well, a little bit of everything, you know. A little bit of everything.
But Nickelback.
A young me was probably listening to Nickelback. I'm not gonna lie.
Dude,
this is before everybody
really?
hated it, okay?
Man, Hambone, how the hell can you wind up like this, looking at a paperback novel? Just saying. Oh, fuck. What did I do? No. Oh, shit. Yeah, but we're not talking that.
Dad Rock is in again, okay? God damn it.
Oh, my God.
Don't you sully the name of Nickelback and Creed.
That's awesome.
Trying to open.
I love Creed.
Oh my God.
So
who doesn't?
As XOJ and B-Roll, you know, huge fan of the independent scene. So I had watched Amazing Red years before. I had a friend whose dad watched independent wrestling, so he would get stuff from the East Coast. So I had seen Red on like ZZW shows, like Jersey All Pro. So when he made his debut for TNA during those Asylum years, I was so excited that he was able to get that big look on pay-per-view.
Hell yeah, man.
I love Amazing Red.
I think another guy who doesn't get nearly enough credit for these early years too, and I mean, he was a veteran. People tend to forget Jerry Lynn.
Yes.
Jerry Lynn did a hell of a job to help get that X Division established. And dare I say, I would go as far, if Jerry Lynn wasn't like, Jerry Lynn was like somebody you knew, like fans were familiar with his work. So, and I think it kind of really helped, you know,
elevate the X Division.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And somebody, I mean, in that same vein, somebody who I feel like doesn't get talked about a lot, but is the person that really brought me into TNA. You know, I was downloading the matches and all that, but, you know, the internet was a different place back in 2002, and it was a little harder to really follow it outside of, you know, just downloading random matches and stuff. But the person who really brought me into TNA to where I was following it every single week, because I was and still am a huge fan of his, is Raven.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Raven got released in WWE and showed up in TNA, and he had an amazing run there.
I legit just watched the video of him debuting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that video coming out in the jacket and
My favorite part is he comes out, he's going up the ramp with the championship, and in the background, you see the fan holding the sign, Vince McMahon, Fierce Raven.
Fierce, Raven,
People talk about the Christian Cages and the Dudleys and all of these guys that jumped. Him being the first one to jump he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And the thing is, like with Raven, like you talk about resilience because in WWE, good God, I mean, they didn't do garbage with him.
Yeah. He was pretty much relegated to Heat for the last year and a half, 2 years he was there. So.
Yeah, and if you look at the way he was booked in TNA, it was smart because it was like he always teased him like getting the NWA title. And like he would come close, it didn't happen, shit would happen, whatever. And then he finally would win the NWA championship, which, by the way, that's something we haven't mentioned. But if you TNA fans know, of course, the early on, the NWA was affiliated with TNA Wrestling. So, and they had a relationship, I believe, up until 06 or 07 or something like that.
06.
And isn't it? It's funny because even at one point, Billy Corgan comes into Impact Wrestling as well.
Yeah, those are what I like to refer to as the lost years.
Yeah,
those were some weird years.
Yeah,
when they were hopping from channel to channel and you couldn't figure where they were at.
Yeah, exactly.
Like where? But I mean, and we gotta, we've mentioned him. We gotta talk about arguably the father of TNA. I mean, Jeff Jarrett. Say what you will, but I do think
me.
I know how you feel about
Jeff Jarrett fan. I will not accept any Jeff Jarrett slander.
Yeah. He's a great heel, but I got to tell you, Hambone, it's the TNA years that really made me hate Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the time frame, it's like I'm watching the WWE and it's just fucking Triple H shoved down my throat.
I was about to say,
TNA.
The fact that these two both
Jeff
have a
Jarrett.
run of terror at the same time is crazy.
Right. Yeah.
It really is. But I mean, in hindsight, in retrospect, you look back, Jeff Jarrett was smart with the way he was booking because, like, when he would get that babyface heel or babyface come in like AJ Styles and build him up and beat him, like to show you how good they were, they did that angle with AJ being the super babyface, taking the strap off of Jeff Jarrett not once but twice, like within I think like a 3-year time span, if that.
I think. In my opinion, the only babyface I think they missed out on that they should have gave.
I think I already know who you're going to say.
Monty.
Go ahead. Yes, the alpha male. Ooh, God damn it! I loved Alfie or Monty Brown.
He was my favorite in TNA for a very long time.
Yeah, Monty Brown, and Monty Brown's another one of those guys that was made in TNA wrestling. I mean, guy that come from the football, like played for the New England Patriots. I think he won a Super Bowl, actually.
He won 2.
Yeah.
He won with the Patriots and Green Bay.
Okay. So, yeah,
I also think before we got on live here, some people we were talking about that were huge for TNA was America's Most Wanted.
Yes.
Made that
I loved Chris Harris and James Storm.
Early TNA's tag division, and so amazing.
Loaded.
AMW, the Naturals, Triple X.
Naturals. Somebody mentioned the Naturals earlier. Another one I love, and I'm rocking the shirt if you look. What about the Rock and Rave connection? Little Jimmy Rave along with Lance
Hoyt.
Yeah,
wow.
Lance Archer.
That just brought me back. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, because they come out playing the Guitar Hero.
Who was the woman that was with him?
Christy Hemme.
Yeah,
Christy Hemme was with them. Yeah.
But even before the Rock and Red convention, Lance's Hoyt run as Dallas as Kid Cash's bodyguard.
Oh, Kid Cash and that was a great tandem too.
Yeah.
But
fellas, I will tell you, in typical TNA fashion, though, we are going to have a surprise debut.
We got a run-in?
We got a run-in. We are bringing in another person who loves them some TNA, Mid-South.
What
up, Mid-South?
Does it work if I turn my camera sideways? Yeah.
Yeah.
What up?
You look beautiful, man. How you doing, brother?
I'm great.
Well, thanks for joining us
Ready?
tonight, man.
Yep, ready to talk some TNA. I hear everything you guys have been talking about. I'm excited. Let's go.
Heck yeah, dude. But yeah, I mean, then this you can tell already with the group chat and with the run-in we got. Everybody is loving the early TNA years here. I mean, another guy we haven't mentioned yet. I gotta mention another homegrown talent. Let's talk about him, the Monster Abyss.
That's who I was about to bring up.
Yes.
Oh, that's one of my favorites from TNA.
There is no TNA without the Monster Abyss.
No, there
From
is
the
not.
from the theme music to the Black Hole Slam, Abyss is TNA.
110% agree.
And let's not forget about his alter ego, the lawyer gimmick. That was awesome.
Yeah, which was so interesting when he did that because I was like, oh my gosh.
He appears in the first 2 pay-per-views.
Yeah, it was Prince Justice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He appears in the Battle Royal and then appears in a squash match as Prince Justice, which was his gimmick for NWA Wildside, which was again, I've talked about it on here, was a feeder independent outside of Atlanta for WCW that Jeff Jarrett picked up once WCW closed. It's the same feeder company that AJ Styles came from, Rave came from, a bunch of guys from the Georgia area came from NWA Wildside.
Yeah, you can see a lot of different influences, and you can see Jeff Jarrett was smart enough and wise enough to use these other different indie promotions like with these young talent. I mean, that's the one thing I think you got to really give TNA credit for is just having an eye for young talent. Another guy we have to mention, of course, and is your current X Division champion for the 9th time, Chris Sabin. Hail Sabin. I mean, am I right? I mean, God, Chris Sabin's had a phenomenal career in TNA.
So have we mentioned Austin Creed?
No, we haven't got that far yet.
Creed,
yeah, Consequences Creed, baby.
That's right.
I met him as Consequences Creed at a TNA house show here. Probably, I don't know how long ago. It was a long time, probably 2005-ish.
Don't date yourself. Don't. But then again, you're like a fine wine, so
that's true. You're not wrong there.
Hey,
I made
you won a tag team title with Adam Pac-Man Jones. So
that did happen.
Yes. And, that's another interesting thing, too, with TNA, too. We could talk about that briefly. They had a lot of celebrity involvement early on, man.
Yeah.
Especially, that first show, you got to keep in mind they had old Toby Keith come in and suplex Jeff Jarrett.
So I have a funny story
Ernie
about
Sadler.
That.
Oh, yeah.
I have a funny story about the Toby Keith situation.
Okay.
So, 2003, me, my dad, and my aunt, my uncle, we went to a Toby Keith concert.
Okay.
He used that as his intro, the suplex, for his concerts for 2 years.
I've seen that because I've been to Toby Keith's show as well.
Yeah, he would do his intro is a video package of him suplexing Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, this is true. I've seen it, and he comes out with the solo cup, and he's like, "I put a boot in your ass. It's the American way." Oh, I'm sorry. 4th of July just happened. I couldn't help it. But anyways, but yeah, so many great wrestlers from the early years. I want to kind of go back though and touch briefly. You guys mentioned it. I think everybody when they talk about James Storm, they always Beer Money, and Beer Money was a phenomenal tag team. Don't get me wrong, but
Team
America's
Canada.
Most Wanted, and yeah, Team Canada, like with Bobby Roode as well. We got to talk. Shit, that's another one, another great from this era too. Let's talk about Team Canada with Bobby Roode and Eric Young and God, Eric Young's a guy we're gonna have to talk about here in a couple minutes too, because he's had a fascinating career. Petey fucking Williams, the man who created the Canadian Destroyer. Who it's crazy how that's like such a common move nowadays, but
he didn't create it.
Well, okay.
No, Scott D'Amore created it.
D'Amore created it, right? But still, D'Amore gave it to Petey.
Yes.
Petey's the guy who you first realize, you first really noticed, did that.
Yeah.
So he put the
Who
move
was
on
their
the
last
map.
person in Team Canada? A1? Was that his name?
I think A1, yeah.
A1. Yeah.
A1.
I remember Scott D'Amore's first version of Team Canada when they were just doing the X Division Cup, and none of those guys were in the company anymore. It was like Teddy Hart, Jack Evans,
Oh,
a couple other guys.
oh! I just had a Wrestling Society X flashback.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
And Jack Evans.
Oh
is
man,
from
if
Washington, which
you guys haven't seen it and you want to go on a fucking ride, find the Teddy Hart documentary on Peacock.
Oh
oh
god!
my god!
It is.
I
It
shut
is
off
a
within 10
ride.
minutes.
Crazy. It's a fucking fever dreams what that is, brother.
I shut it off within a half an hour. I was like, I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah. Fuck that
Even
guy.
my wife doesn't watch wrestling, and she watched that whole thing with me because it's just fucking insane.
Yeah. But can we also just talk about how crazy is it, bringing it back to like present day as well, that Scott D'Amore is getting ready to wrestle again at Slammiversary?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love
'cause,
Scott.
and Scott D'Amore is a guy you got to give a tremendous amount of credit to, because in my opinion, I think Scott D'Amore saved Impact Wrestling.
Oh, he definitely.
Oh
did.
yeah, I agree.
I mean,
yeah.
and we're going to talk about that a little bit more next week on part 2 of our episodes here. But I mean,
Also, let's touch back on America's Most Wanted real
Yes.
quick. We're talking about how great they were as a tag team, but what about Gail Kim with them? I mean, that really brought the whole package together. Was Gail
Yes.
Kim
Yeah.
joining America's Most Wanted?
I love Gail Kim.
yeah, Gail Kim was phenomenal with them, and I mean, the just 2 white meat baby faces, man, with them at first when they started. I mean, and then how they turned into heels, joined up with they had, like you say, had Gail Kim and was part of like Jeff Jarrett's group. there for a little
Planet
while.
Jarrett.
Planet
I got a
Jarrett.
quick
That's what they
faction.
were called. I forgot about that. I couldn't remember
Planet
the
Jarrett
name.
was a phenomenal faction.
Yeah, but AMW, man, my God, like, so those guys just one
That
of my
feud with Triple X.
yes,
early
that's the
on.
next thing I wanted to get into was the feud with Triple X, and I'll never forget like the way it was probably, in my opinion, one of the best endings of the feuds I can recall. We got to talk about the 6 Sides of Steel cage match at Turning Point between
Bill
Triple
Steele being
X.
a crazy bastard.
Yeah, with one of the craziest spots you'll ever see in pro
Yeah.
wrestling,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
where this man catwalks the top of a fucking cage and does a hurricanrana, and just it looks so beautiful. Like, I mean, I think when they do TNA highlights still to this day,
Oh yeah.
that's
Yeah.
in the package all the time.
I feel like I see that spot every 2 to 3 weeks somehow when Impact runs something back about the
Or
early
it's
years.
engraved in your brain, man, because
Yeah.
it's just
It's
like,
the most iconic move they have that they've ever had. So
Especially the camera angle too. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it was just caught perfectly. It wasn't, from the bottom looking up at it. I mean, it was right there with Elix Skipper right up top, and
he was this close to missing it,
he
but
was.
that close made the difference because it was perfect.
yeah.
He was recently at the Atlanta tapings backstage.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I saw that picture.
with
Yeah,
guys, and it made me feel so old. I was like, oh my god, this is the childhood thing here. This is weird.
Yeah, but I mean, this stuff we're talking about here, the early days, this is to me is like what defined TNA wrestling. So we mentioned
I got
these. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I got a crazy opinion.
Yeah.
So I know we're mainly talking men here, and Gail Kim was brought up. I think Christy Hemme was brought up in the beginning. Still to this day, obviously everyone says the Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles match, threat match was the greatest match in TNA history. I truly believe the second greatest match in TNA history was probably Terrence Terrell, Gail Kim. You guys have an opinion on that?
I totally thought you were going somewhere else. I thought you were going Gail Kim, Awesome Kong.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
No.
Too.
Probably the second greatest feud they had in TNA. Their matches were good, but the greatest women's match that I've ever seen in TNA was Gail Kim, Terrence Terrell at that
I
pay-per-view.
watched
I
that
forget
match.
which one. You
know,
gotta watch that match
I'm
again.
going to be 110% straight up with you. As much wrestling as I've seen, I
You don't
honestly,
remember
I
this?
don't recall this matchup. I mean, I think I
I know
recall
the
them
match you're
feuding,
talking about. It's been a while since I've watched it.
but I'll
You
have to
gotta
go back
go
and
back
watch.
and
It
watch
was-
that match.
It was
And hey-
Taryn Terrell and Mia Yim, who was Jade at the time, and Marty Bell. What was their name
The
together?
Dollhouse. The doll.
The
I love the
Dollhouse,
Dollhouse, man.
I forget
Ah,
Mia
the
Yim
beautiful,
was
the
in
beautiful
TNA.
people.
Yeah, and they actually
Oh,
came
yeah,
out
beautiful
to
people, yeah,
they
yeah.
came out to Holes that song too
Yeah.
as well, which I thought
Yep.
was dope. But
Yeah. But yeah, we
Hey.
definitely got. If we're talking TNA, you got to talk beautiful people.
The beautiful,
the
beautiful people are iconic.
Billy Gunn made that faction for me.
Q-Kip, you mean?
Oh
God,
You
yeah.
kidding.
James.
Kip.
My favorite
Wait.
one.
If we're talking Q-Kip, then we also need to talk, even though he wasn't in it, but it's just an aside, 3 Live Crew.
3
Oh,
OK
yeah.
is so great.
Or,
Yeah.
or Voodoo Kin Mafia, VKM.
VKM, man. Yes. Yes. You can see
My
there's so
favorite
much
one-
greatness, and we're just jumping around here, folks. But I
See,
will
my
say this: if
favorite
you want to
TNA
see all this stuff, you can go over to Impact Wrestling and subscribe for their monthly service for $9.99, and they don't pay us shit, but that's okay.
You-
Maybe someday.
You can watch Impact on YouTube for $1 a month.
That's
Yeah.
right.
My favorite
Throw it out there.
knockout, though, and she's someone that deserves to be mentioned. She just got married too. ODB.
ODB, yeah.
Yes, yeah. You know, guys, let's just go ahead and get right into that. The Knockouts division, the Knockouts fucking division, the best women's division in all of professional wrestling today.
And still the best booked women's division in wrestling is Impact
Yeah.
Wrestling.
It's
Yes.
amazing. It's amazing to me. I can't recall there ever being a bad error in the Knockouts division, honestly.
No.
I mean, it was all pretty solid stuff.
Tracy Brooks.
Yeah, let's talk early days. Some
Oh,
early
jeez.
Tracy Brooks, Trinity. I can't forget.
Oh
about
my
her.
God.
I think it was Spicy Guac in the chat there. He mentioned Daphne.
Daphne, yes. Daphne. Oh, she had a great little run there in TNA wrestling too, as well. It's unfortunate what happened in the end
Yeah.
with the injury she sustained, but yes, Daphne. Oh my gosh.
Watching Tracy Brooks learn her craft, because she started as someone that couldn't wrestle and turned into a legit wrestler, was incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. And speaking of Tracy Brooks, yeah, that's Irish brings up good Michael Shane as well as Frankie Kazarian. And hell, Kazarian and Brooks are married in real life. So yeah, Tracy Brooks, she was a looker, still is.
She dated Punk for a while.
Yes, she did. She did date Punk for a while. I forgot about that. So, old Pepsi Phil. And you know, hey, we're talking about names and stuff before in the early days back in the Asylum. I mean, Punk was another guy that wrestled in TNA.
Julio De
Yeah,
Niro.
he was in Raven's group
Yeah,
with Julio De
Julio
Niro
De Niro, baby,
and Mickey
Yeah.
James.
Until they turned and joined James Mitchell, who is a guy who definitely needs to be talked about.
Oh, Father James Mitchell, who really had a resurgence in Impact and like a huge part of Abyss's character, man.
Yeah.
My God, there's so much that early days in TNA wrestling. I do kind of want to transition a little bit and talk about from their jump from the Asylum to the Impact Zone when they started doing tapings in Orlando at
Fox
Universal.
Sports. For
Yeah,
Fox
and then they got the deal with Fox Sports 1 where they were actually on TV.
This is where I really started watching.
Same here, Michael. This is where I truly kind of like discovered them. I remembered like watching a couple of those pay-per-views. I'm like, oh, cool. Now they got a TV deal. Sweet.
Mhm.
But dude, it was like one of those things too, where you had to actively try to fucking find it too. I think it was on
It was
Friday
3
afternoons
o'clock.
at like 2 or something for me.
It was 3 o'clock every Wednesday because I would come home from school and turn it on.
Okay.
I think, if there's, and this isn't just directed towards TNA, but if there's one thing to say about wrestling fans, it is that we are loyal and we will find you. I mean, if you really think about how many, channel changes WWE has had or TNA and Impact over the years, AEW, going from different times and flipping stations, TNT, TBS, we're always going to follow the product wherever it goes.
You can say that about
Absolutely.
Ring of Honor too, and their TV
Yeah.
deals.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I feel like though that transition was good for them too. Because let's talk about let's talk about the very first TNA 3-hour pay-per-view, Victory Road, back in 2004. And I remember my uncle was like a huge like ECW fan, and I was like, dude, you got to come check this TNA stuff out. This is pretty interesting. And he like got into it. Like after that, dude, I'm not kidding you. For like a year and a half straight, every month we were watching like TNA pay-per-views, monthly, man. And that first one was a great one too, because I mean, you kicked it off with the X Division Battle Royal. You had a monster. I think if this was the first Monsters Ball match, was Abyss against Raven against Monty Brown. And I love that concept. And we mentioned that earlier, and we're going to talk about that a little more tonight. All the different match variations. They made some cool ones, but they did make some pretty shitty ones too. But I mean, the Monsters Ball I always thought was a cool concept too. And I love like how they played it up, where they kept them in like a dark room with no water or food for 24 hours, and then they just finally let them out to fight. They were all come out like, oh god, the light.
Hey, it's still real to me. It's still real to me.
If we're talking, TNA innovated matches, and we're talking Raven, you got to talk a Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange match, yeah. Well, was that in TNA or was that Ring of Honor? It's the same time.
That was TNA.
Stuff. Was it TNA?
It was in
Okay.
TNA. He did,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. But yeah, Clockwork Orange match was I always found fascinating, with just like the one side of the cage put up, and then like you had all the weapons and whatnot. Of course, we kind of touched on this, but the Ultimate X match, that is one of the craziest
So
matches.
amazing.
Yeah, like it's the shit they were doing in that matchup is like, jeez, are you kidding me? Them early day Ultimate X matches, I think I can remember Kazarian hitting like a stunner on, was it Amazing Red or something, like off the top of the X?
No, that was Michael Shane.
Oh, it was Michael Shane. Okay.
Yeah, that feud between Frankie Kazarian, Michael Shane, and Chris Sabin in those X Division matches.
Yeah. And Spicy, to answer your question, what casket match are you talking about, brother? We ain't talking about. No, we're not talking about it. The Last Rites match. Yeah, that's next week, maybe. But no, man, the Ultimate X match was awesome. Hey, speaking of X Division and stuff, that X Cup, man, the X Cup was so innovative and fun to watch, to see all the different athletes involved and the countries involved. You had, I believe it was like AAA with the from Mexico.
Yeah.
Of course, you mentioned Team Canada. Of course, Team USA.
You could really say that TNA was really the first company to open the forbidden door.
Oh yes,
because they worked with anybody.
Yeah.
Isn't that when we first met Doug Williams? I believe his name was from England.
Yeah.
That's where
Doug. Shayna's favorite wrestler, Doug Williams. Shout out to you, Shayna. I know you're watching.
But that's where like TNA was like how I found like Hector Garza and like Shocker.
Oh yeah, God, I'll never forget Mike Tenay having a fucking aneurysm when Shocker come out. Like, oh my God, it's Shocker! I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I didn't know who he was. Like, Mike Tenay made it build up like it was the second coming of Christ or something. It's like, Jesus.
And let's not forget about those excursions from Japan when we first got to see Okada.
Yeah, God.
That is the one thing. That is the one thing TNA fucked up royally.
I mean, we had Sonata too. They had the great Sonata.
Well, Sonata, they did some stuff, but they fucked Okada terribly.
Yeah, Okada was bad.
What was it?
Okada was a lackey.
He was a ripoff of the Green Hornet sidekick.
I was about to say, wasn't he a cartoon ripoff?
Yeah.
I was watching Cultaholic earlier, the rise and fall of TNA, and that's what they said. They said they freaking made Okada into the Green Hornets sidekick.
I mean, I don't know.
And not everything about these early years were great. We already mentioned the Flying Elvises. Got to be one of the dumbest gimmicks ever.
Yeah, there was definitely
but that did build Sonny Siaki to be a slight star for the company for a while.
Yeah, I feel like with him, they tried awful hard, and man, if
They
you don't
did try
know,
with him,
like,
but yeah.
if you looked
Way
at him
to
back in the
be,
day, he looks like $1 million. He did.
I like Sonny Siaki.
Way
I
to
do.
be a
Huge
cup
fan.
half full type of guy, Michael. Way to be a cup half full.
Hey, I legit thought he was gonna be a next big star. Okay,
Yeah.
like I was a big Sonny Siaki fan.
Except I will say this: he had some pretty shitty entrance music, though. but
And he
yeah,
was part of one of the greatest factions ever, Sports Entertainment Extreme.
sex, baby.
God, Vince Russo's an idiot.
Yeah. But that's one thing, guys. Let's talk about here real quickly. Especially in those early days, and I know we kind of skipped around the Asylum, but the Asylum years, ton of like Hall of Fame wrestlers actually made their appearances. Like everybody from the Legion of Doom to
That
Vader.
pop is amazing.
Oh my God, yeah, literally the Road Warrior pop, and it did happen in TNA. Also Lex Luger,
Boss.
yeah, Buff Bagwell. Like, gosh, there's so many other different names, but it's just
Scott
like,
Hall's last great run in wrestling was in TNA in those early days.
yeah, you're not wrong. Because I mean, I thought he was a shoo-in to win that Battle Royal we mentioned earlier. But seriously, like everybody has worked for TNA. I think at some point or
Dusty.
another. Dusty,
Didn't Macho Man? Didn't Macho Man work
Yeah.
before he died?
What
You
Yeah.
are reading
Yeah,
my
that's
mind because that's kind of what I wanted to tie it back around to because we were talking about the very first pay-per-view Victory Road. The Macho Man makes an appearance at the end of the show, and it's just like, holy shit, the Macho Man's here? Now, let's say this. I love Randy Savage, but this was not the same Macho Man.
No.
Uh,
Macho Man is on my Mount Rushmore, and these were rough,
rough.
years.
These were kind of rough to see.
Wasn't this around the time he dropped the album?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be a man, Hulk.
Yeah.
Just
For a while. Not gonna lie.
I tried to get it on Final Record Store.
Yeah, they
but
just
it's
re-released it.
literally-
I tried to find it too, XLJ, but couldn't find it.
It's impossible. They only did 1,000 printings. It's just
Yeah.
Fuck, are you kidding me? But no, with the Macho Man, now they did bring him in, and he did actually, believe it or not, he wrestled his last match ever was in TNA Wrestling. As
Yeah.
at the next month's pay-per-view Turning Point, they put him in a 6-man tag. But I will say this, and I kind of know we talked about this earlier, but I do want to give Jeff Jarrett credit where credit is due, that he realized that, like, okay, if I'm going to close that pay-per-view, I'm closing it with America's Most Wanted and Triple X. Because if you have followed with that 6-man tag afterwards, it'd been like, what the fuck is this? But man, oh man, like these early years that we're talking about are just so damn good. But another guy I want to talk about, we've kind of mentioned, and Mr. B-Roll, he's on your shirt. Let's talk about Samoa Joe when he was brought into TNA. What I was loved about it is they kind of replicated the Ring of Honor run, really, where they just made him this unbeatable, unstoppable monster, and he just plowed through everybody in the X division.
So, I'm from Louisiana originally. We did not get Ring of Honor. In fact, we didn't even get ECW.
Oh,
But
wow.
when I saw Samoa Joe debut in TNA, I thought that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. I mean, he was a walking destroyer. He had the towel around his neck, and keep in mind, we didn't get ECW, so I didn't see Taz until later on. But Samoa Joe coming down to the ring with those different color shorts, two-tone shorts, and the towel around his neck, and wiping people's blood on the towel, that was amazing to me. It was great.
The Joe's gonna kill you. Oh my God! Everything about
And
Samoa Joe.
they messed it up with Kurt Angle, damn it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But still, though, like the
Listen.
early days.
Oh.
Samoa Joe, this isn't about TNA, but I love me some Samoa Joe too. Samoa Joe should have beaten Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire and been champion. I don't care what anybody says about it.
No
I
argument.
agree
He's
with
a
that too.
believable guy to have beaten Brock
Why
Lesnar.
did you have to make me remember about Great Balls of Fire? Now I'm mad. I hear about you.
Sorry.
This is how you've done this.
Sorry.
Well, let me.
Samoa Joe should have had a Goldberg run in
Oh
TNA.
my God. Yeah. But I do love like how he was first built up, like I said, and like one of my favorite early on matches of his was at the very first staple of like TNA shows, Bound for Glory, like their WrestleMania, and the very first Bound for Glory, the whole show it kicks off with Samoa Joe against one Jushin Thunder
Okay,
Liger.
I'm happy this match got brought up because this is, my opinion, the most underrated match in TNA history.
Yeah, it's fucking great, man. Like anytime Samoa Joe was working with any Japanese talent was great. I mean, good God, I could talk to you for days about the Kobayashi stuff in ROH, but that's another show for another time. But yes, this matchup criminally underrated, Michael. What was your biggest takeaways from that?
The fact that they made both look good, but they made sure Samoa Joe still looked like the fucking animal and monster that he was.
Yeah.
That Jushin Thunder Liger was able to not put his legend in book, and he allowed Joe to get his. Because Jushin Thunder Liger could have definitely been like, no, I'm Jushin, I'm going over. The fact that he was able to make Joe look like a monster was really great.
Yeah, I totally 110% agree. And I love like Samoa Joe's ascension through the X division. And I think it was smart how they did that first year with him too, because like he didn't really get like that title right off the bat. But guys, you knew we were going to talk about it. Many people say it is the greatest match in TNA wrestling, myself included. We got to talk about that incredible triple threat match from Unbreakable 2005 between Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, and Samoa Joe. I mean, this matchup, holy shit, B-Roll, I know you just watched this matchup, I believe, for the first time today, right?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts you took away from that, from seeing this for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, it's just... You almost have to use almost the word like speechless, because they have you so many times where you're like, oh, like you're just on the edge of your seat the whole time. Is the best way I can honestly describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. I mean, and it was. I just remember watching it at that time, and it was like my bloodlust as a wrestling fan, and just getting such an amazing freaking matchup. Like I knew it was kind of one of those things where going into it, you're like, dude, this is going to be good. And then when you get done with, you're like, holy shit, that was great. Mid-South,
I think that match. I don't think that match, like, I don't want to say it flies under the radar, because I don't think that that's true. I think that match is really what put TNA on the map, I think, because I think that match created so much buzz that it brought in people who were not watching. But not only that, I feel like that match, whether people, equate it or not, I think that match has a huge influence on the kind of wrestling that we see now in every single company.
Yes.
110%.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
WWE did not book triple threat matches that way. They started doing it after seeing that. Their triple threat matches were kind of how you see nowadays still, and they change it up from time to time. But as soon as the match starts, one guy gets knocked out the ring and is 1-on-1 for a while. Then that guy comes back in and someone else gets laid out or something and is 1-on-1 again for a while. Then they come together toward the end to the conclusion. That triple threat match, for the majority of the match, all three men were in the center of the ring.
Yep.
Fighting.
And one thing when you talk about this matchup, I think a lot of people gravitate towards just Samoa Joe's dominance, the phenomenalness, is that a word? We're going to say it's a word, of AJ Styles. But the person who I think does not get nearly enough credit in this matchup is the damn X Division champion going into that matchup is Christopher Daniels, who, by the way, at the time, the longest reigning X Division champion.
Yep.
Christopher Fallen Angel Daniels, such a freaking awesome wrestler.
Yeah. I was a huge Christopher Daniels fan. I'm talking about before TNA. I loved the Fallen Angel gimmick. He was one of the few independent wrestlers that I really tried to follow closely, because I just loved his work. And I feel like people know how much Christopher Daniels meant to TNA in these early years, but at the same time, I still think he's kind of almost an unsung hero of it, because he kind of does get lost in that shuffle when you're talking about Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, and then eventually Kurt Angle and all these others. But man, I don't know that you have a TNA and an Impact without Chris Daniels.
I don't think so.
Best moonsault ever.
Damn straight. And I mean, just the stuff he was doing there, and finally like getting his due. I do feel like in Ring of Honor, like it started for him, but like with TNA, it was on a much higher level where he was exposed to the world.
Yeah.
But Christopher Daniels' run was just chef's kiss. It was so damn good. Like, not a bad match out of that guy. And you know what? Great rivalries throughout the history of TNA. But damn, Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles, that was one of the best rivalries of all time in TNA wrestling, in my opinion.
Yes. That is the best to me. That one and the Gail Kim Amazing Kong or Awesome Kong were the two greatest feuds ever there to me.
Yeah.
They were a ridiculously underrated tag team, too.
I was about to just say that, Hambo. You're listening to my brain.
Took the words right out of his mouth. You're right in his wrestling brain, brother.
Legit, that tag team was phenomenal.
Yep.
You know, one of my favorite matches between AJ and Daniels, and I can't remember what the pay-per-view was, but they did have a 30-minute Iron Man match, and that was so damn good. I feel like I want to say a Hard Justice or something like that. I could be wrong. But you could Wikipedia that shit if you want.
And speaking of tag teams, if we're talking AJ and Chris,
I know where you're going, Brett.
I was going to bring them up too, Michael. Oh, yeah.
Homicide and Hernandez.
Supermax
and
Hernandez
and the theme song.
And Machete.
Yeah. And the theme song.
Yeah.
Because the theme song started it off. When that music hit.
Their whole, their own announce team with Hector Guerrero, Conan's managing them.
So I think that LAX existed kind of in some of those forgotten years of TNA, and in my opinion, they carried TNA for years. Well, I don't care who the world champion was at the time. The main attraction in TNA at the time was whatever LAX were doing.
Because their feuds were so violent and brutal, and they were such great heels. Like, you put them against Christopher Daniels and AJ, or their feud with the Dudleys. I'm going to say Dudleys.
Hernandez, though, is a guy I don't think is another guy who you don't really hear people talk about, but good God. Man, he would just throw people around in the damn ring.
But they screwed up and tried to make him a single star. He did not have any charisma.
Yeah.
If they kept the team together, they would have been
that gimmick. He just
Now, Homicide, on the other hand, Homicide's a different story. Homicide's a once in a lifetime. Or as I like to always refer to him, he's always going to be Baby New Jack to me, because I swear to God, he's New Jack's kid. I don't care what anybody says. But that LAX team, guys, you're right. Like, another one of the great tag teams in all time of TNA wrestling. But speaking of great tag teams, another team we haven't talked about yet, and they're currently going strong. We got to talk about the Motor City Machine Guns. Alex Shelley, and your current Impact World Champion, by the way, and your current X Division Champion, Christopher Sabin. I know we're jumping around here, but how emotional of a moment was that? What God, I can't even think the last show, but where Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley won those titles. Like, amazing. Especially Alex Shelley, my God.
You should have got that world title a while ago.
Yeah, long overdue. But great.
If we're talking early years of TNA, though, we're talking Alex Shelley. We need to talk the paparazzi.
Paparazzi. I knew you were gonna fucking say that. Being a huge Nash fan. Yeah.
But God.
Alex Shelley and Johnny Devine. Johnny Devine, another Team Canada member.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was with Team Canada at first.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
just clicked in my head.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
But when they put the two guys together, who could have saw that coming? Because that tag team, that Motor City Machine Gun tag team, has lasted a while now.
Yeah.
They are just perfect together.
And I believe if you was to talk about, and this may be a hot take, but I'm going to say if you talk about the greatest tag team in the history of TNA wrestling, I think a lot of people would have Motor City Machine Guns at the top there.
Yeah.
Most
I would
definitely.
agree with that. They,
Yeah.
I mean, TNA has had a ton of amazing tag teams go through there in all the years, but I think it's hard to make an argument against the Machine Guns.
I got a question, and I guarantee you're gonna know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
What is the greatest heel turn in the history of TNA?
Oh.
Bobby turning on James Storm.
There you go.
That, yeah.
That kicked it off.
That bottle to the head is so vicious.
Hey, we haven't talked about beer money.
Yeah, I was going to say, we got to mention Beer Money, too. As great as AMW was, like James Storm and Bobby Roode. And I felt like, too, that you know what the scenario there, you know what it reminded me of? Go back and look in the in WCW in 92 when Steve Austin was paired with Brian Pillman. And it was like these
Just
two
two
great
guys
wrestlers.
who shouldn't have worked together, but for some reason they did.
Yeah.
And it led to a phenomenal run after that split of Bobby Roode being the face of a while.
Yeah, it was. It was a pretty awesome
that Bobby
run.
Roode World Championship run that technically got him that NXT job.
Yeah, that is true. Well, guys, I want to talk now about. We mentioned this earlier. We talked about like Raven and whatnot, but I want to talk about like at the time where. So at this point, we've established a couple years into it. Like TNA is cooking on all cylinders. They are getting like people are following, people are watching. The true wrestling fans are really like enjoying the product they're putting out. But the first real guy to truly who was active and actively on TV, on WWE television to jump ship, we got to talk about it, Christian Cage. Like when Christian Cage come out, it was just, I was like, holy shit, they got Christian? That's fucking awesome. And
the way they did that with beginning the show thinking he's going to join Team Canada and then having him turn babyface at the end. Beautiful.
What a fucking run he had there too, man.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And my God,
So
like the stuff he did, like somehow he was able to elevate a guy, no disrespect, like Tomko, like as like a guy, like a top guy in TNA, dare I say, at that time frame. That's pretty damn impressive.
That feud that Christian had with Abyss, where Abyss was attacking him at his home.
Oh my God, yeah.
Almost killed him under the water.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree. Like Christian stuff he did in TNA was really fucking good. Like, and I feel like that was a lot of pin-up frustration from him too, where he could finally like truly be the true character. And I think the Christian that we know now, this dastardly heel, like this is where he really developed that persona. Because in WWE, he was kind of treated as like, okay, he's Edge's buddy, or he was treated as a joke, the creepy little bastard, right? But man, the stuff in TNA sets him apart.
Sorry, I need to rant something about the Edge Christian thing. The fact that WWE does thing where they drop the ball on their own storylines, because at the beginning of their situation, they're booked as brothers. And then halfway, like a few years into it, oh, we're best friends. Like early in their days during the Alliance, like 2000, they're booked as brothers.
Right. Yep. They're like, fuck it. Let's just do it this way.
Kayfabe is dead, brother.
To steal a line from my good friend the CDC, I can tell you exactly why that happened. Reasons.
Now,
can I bring up a terrible TNA gimmick from these early years?
I would love a terrible TNA gimmick.
In my mind, I'm trying to go through and think like, okay, well, where is he going with this? But yes, let's hear it.
The dicks.
Dustin Rhodes as Black Rain.
That's.
I thought you were going Shark Boy.
Hey,
I love Shark Boy.
He's a god.
Shark Boy is
yeah.
and a hell of a nice guy. I've met him a couple times. He's a hell of a nice guy. But
he just returned to wrestling after like a 10-year hiatus.
Yep.
Oh, I love Shark Boy, especially when he did a Stone Cold impersonation.
Stone Cold Shark Boy is the greatest thing ever.
You talk about like a thing that shouldn't have fucking got over, kind of like in ECW with the BWO. Like, how the fuck Shark Boy got over as Stone Cold Steve Austin? Hell yeah, baby!
Had everybody in the crowd doing this.
If we're gonna talk about Shark Boy and Stone Cold, then we gotta talk about Jay Lethal and Black Machismo.
Yes,
Yes.
Black Machismo. We have not mentioned Jay Lethal yet, as all.
Yeah.
Jay Lethal is another one. Between the Black Machismo, the Ric Flair thing.
If you ask me the
The
greatest promo in TNA wrestling history, I would say the back and forth between Flair and Black Machismo.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that was, I still watch that to this day. Just
Jay Lethal talking about in the interviews where they would be backstage and Ric Flair would just bring people by so Jay could do that impersonation and then just walk away
yeah,
and not even thank him
yeah.
is amazing.
Followed second by the Scott Steiner promo.
Oh,
Which one?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's,
You know which one. He won.
you
All
got
right.
a 33rd of a chance of getting this right, Michael, okay?
He's got a few in there. Why they keep on giving Scott freaking microphones is beyond me.
That's
Oh my God.
sacrifice.
You know, let's talk about, and that's another one I want to talk about, guys who showed up at TNA. Scott Steiner, one of those established stars, and he had a pretty fun run in TNA.
Yeah.
I thought, like, the promos,
Much better than his WWE run.
a million times better than his WWE run. My gosh. But just the Steiner math, and like always calling like Bully Ray, like and Samoa Joe fat asses. Oh,
And how about his little team with little Petey Pump?
oh,
Petey Pump,
little Petey
I
Pump.
love that.
Are we gonna talk Raka Khan too?
Ooh.
Yeah.
She's not well liked. Let's not.
No.
Let's not dig the grave on what it's
Let's
already
not
there.
go there.
Kurt Angle's got some stories about her.
Yes.
So does Awesome Khan.
Can I? Hot as fuck though. Sorry, respectfully.
With all due
Respectfully.
respect.
I guess
some-
Raka stole money from Awesome Kong's mom, like a lot of money.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Well, some other talents though that came through as well that were established. Booker T had a run in TNA.
Yes.
Of course,
Right.
Kevin Nash had multiple
Are
runs
these
in TNA.
would these years constitute the main event mafia?
Well, I was
Yes.
gonna say we got to mention it, the main event mafia, and you know, it just
All right.
hit me. God, we've been talking to all these great guys. We haven't even mentioned Sting. I mean,
Yeah.
Sting having like such a tremendous run in TNA wrestling.
I think
really-
my favorite big name to come in and is from like Asylum years, and going back to the Shark Boy thing, New Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, the New Jack.
New
God,
Jack
where
and
they're
Shark
playing
Boy
fucking
together.
board games or something. I
Yes.
think it was. Oh my God.
They had that weird hard cup 10 thing that they were doing, and New Jack and Sandman were Sandman.
Oh, the Sandman
Yeah.
was in
Holy.
TNA
Sabu
too.
had a run too.
Harry
Sabu as well.
Saturn. Just
Huh?
incredible.
The list goes on and on. There's so many guys.
So Asylum years were like crazy for people that just showed up.
I don't think we mentioned this. Kurt Hennig wrestled there too, as well. Had a little
Yeah.
bit of a run.
Yeah.
But we're mentioning all these names of jumping ship and whatnot, but the biggest name by far, and guys, I got to tell you, when this was announced, I did not see it fucking coming at all, and I marked the fuck out because I was like, oh
Okay.
my God, this is going to put them on the map. When
I know where you're
Kurt
going.
Angle jumped ship, that was insane to me as a wrestling fan, because at the time, I mean, Kurt was still active in WWE.
He
was
had
working
that
in
weird
ECW.
storyline with Booker and Charmel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
But
Can
when
we-
Kurt Angle, when they first aired that promo, I'll never forget. This is how impactful it was, no pun intended. Was at the end of I think it was No Surrender pay-per-view of like 06 or whatever it was. And like at the end of the night, they showed this clip and it went off the air, and you're just like, holy fuck. And I'll never forget it too, because it shows the silhouette, guy in the ring, and you're thinking to yourself, no, that's not him. That can't be him. That can't be him. And when they go into showing the American flag, it's like, holy fuck, they got Kurt Angle. Like, how in the fuck they pulled that off? And I think a lot of people have said this before. I think our good friend Dad Hat, I believe, even said this too. Or it may have been you, Hambone. Somebody said, I remember, that they truly think Kurt Angle's best work was in TNA.
I was about to say, him as Perk Angle is his best run. And I said what I said.
If we're saying wrestling only, yes.
Yeah.
But he was a clown in WWF, and it was awesome.
That's true.
Yeah.
But matches
I do think though that you do have to mention, if you're talking, the Kurt Angle years of TNA, you have to mention the fact that at this point they have a TV deal and they are pulling in big numbers. They've got they're drawing big crowds. They're pulling in 2 and 3 million people a year, more than fucking AEW does now, more than WWE does now half the time.
Which is
they were doing
to
big
think
numbers
about.
during these years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, here's another one, and I know we're jumping around, folks, but like this is just there's so much, and you could tell all of us have such a passion for TNA wrestling.
Yes.
When Team 3D showed up too, that's another one we forgot to mention. That was on the very first Impact because that was on Spike, and like you say, that was a huge deal when they signed with Spike. It was just like okay,
because it was like shortly after One Night Stand, so you didn't know where the Dudleys were doing. Because that was literally like 2 weeks after the first One Night Stand.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they showed up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I remember, too, with them showing up as well, the one thing that did piss me off was like, okay, we can't call them Bully Ray or Bubba Ray and Devon. We're Brother Ray and Brother Devon because WWE had the rights. But, I mean, it's still, you know who the fuck it
that's
was.
where I met the Dudleys, was at that same house show I met Austin or Xavier Woods. I met the Dudleys there too.
That's awesome.
So what about when they moved to Monday nights?
Yes.
I don't know. Are we covering that?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. That was a ballsy fucking move too, to say, you know what, we're going to go up against Raw.
And you know what happened on night one.
Have we talked about your favorite yet, XLJ?
No, we haven't talked about him. Go ahead. Yes, let's say his name. Now we're going to get into the Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff years.
Okay.
There it is.
I'll give you 10 seconds to say fuck Hulk Hogan as many times as you can. You ready?
I only need one. Fuck Hulk
Fuck
Hogan.
Hulk Hogan. Fuck Hulk Hogan. Fuck Hulk Hogan. Fuck Hulk Hogan. I'll use all 10 seconds. Fuck Hulk Hogan. Fuck Hulk Hogan.
Mid-South, you're the man.
You weren't a big fan of Immortal, brother. You weren't a big fan of the Antichrist of wrestling, Jeff Hardy being the crown jewel of Immortal.
I love that gimmick.
Let me say this. Let me say this about that real quick. I don't care what anybody says. You will never unconvince me otherwise. When Jeff Hardy won that belt, that's the ugliest fucking belt design I've ever seen in my life of a championship title. That was like a child playing with paint. Fuck that belt. Yeah. And it was a damn shame that Ken Anderson fucking held that belt. They didn't change it back to the world title. No, it was the shitty fucking Jeff Hardy belt. Anyway,
I feel like this time period where Hogan and Bischoff came in is when I kind of checked out of TNA. But I feel like it's also, it wasn't just that as much as this is where it got really difficult to find them and watch them because they were jumping around, from different channels. It was not easy to find TNA during these years either. Yeah. But it was also fun.
But I'll tell you, I'll shoot straight with you. For me, at this time frame, after the stuff happened with Chris Benoit, it was hard for me to watch because Chris Benoit I'll admit, was my favorite wrestler then.
Sure.
And when that shit happened, it just fucking destroyed me as a fan. Like, all honesty. And I just lost. And you guys know, you see me. I love professional wrestling, but this is a time frame where it's just I stopped watching because my heart could not get into it. And like, I think honestly, if TNA was still going down the road they were with, like, with AJ and with everybody else, and Hogan wasn't involved, I probably would have just watched TNA exclusively at that time. But when Hogan showed up, I was just like, yeah, fuck this shit, I'm out.
I tried
was
giving the Hogan thing a run, and then the Nasty Boys showed up, and then Bubba the Love Butt, and I was
Oh God.
once people from the '80s that were friends with Hogan started showing up on TV, I was like, I'm good on this.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing to me that really like did me in was when he put his fucking daughter on TV too. I'm sorry, but I rather watch fucking the Masters on a 24-hour loop. I rather watch paint dry than to see one fucking promo from Brooke Hogan. There, I said.
So, Brooke Hogan was awful, yes, but I will say that she was involved in one of the best storylines in TNA.
I was about to
Because
say,
it was because-
Aces and 8 was
It was
great.
because of her that Aces and Eights came about, with Bully Ray turning on Hulk Hogan after he was in love with Brooke Hogan.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So,
I will say this about and I'm glad you brought that up because that's where I wanted to go, and I do think 100% what you're saying. The Aces and 8, like that storyline that they ran for over a year, was like it was great, but to me, honestly, this is gonna be a hot take.
What up, MJ?
I started watching TNA kind of again, but like I knew from the get-go, like everybody else, I was like, okay, fucking Bully's going to turn in the end. Like, you knew it was going to fucking happen. You saw it coming a mile away. And I wasn't into it, man. I didn't think it was as great as everybody hyped it up.
You didn't like Garrett Bischoff and Wes Briscoe?
I wasn't a fan of Sons
Bully.
of Anarchy version 2.0 with the Dudleys. I'm sorry, but it just didn't do it for me.
all right.
I respect it for what it was. And
It made
let me
Bully
say-
Ray a main eventer.
That is true. That is true.
You didn't
Big
like
Sal.
Mike Knox coming out as nuts?
D'Lo Brown
I do
being in a
love
biker
D'Lo,
gang.
though, which made no sense. Why was
do love
D'Lo
D'Lo.
in a biker gang? I love
D'Lo is one of the most underrated wrestlers of the 90s. I don't care what anybody says.
Facts.
110%, brother. But I just felt like, to me, the Aces and 8 thing was just, like I say, I will admit, it got me to tune in and watch because I wasn't watching at the time. But when it was revealed, like the mystery of it, the aura of it's what got me into it, you know. But after it was revealed, like the single, like who the
And
members were, I was just like, okay.
This era, we got my favorite version of Sting.
Now let's talk about that. You're
Joker
right.
Sting
Joker
is
Sting.
great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
Joker Sting
If
is
there-
phenomenal.
if you had told me like Sting is going to do a rip off of the Joker, I would have told you this is going to be fucking awful.
Yeah.
But somehow Sting was able to pull it off and actually make it very entertaining.
You want to know why it worked so good, though, Hambone? I can tell you the reason why. Because
Why is that?
it's Sting! I had to get one in. But seriously, Joker Sting, yeah, it was, by all rights, that shit should not have worked, but man, it did. It really did.
So
Especially because, I mean, it's at a time, we're talking right around the time of the Dark Knight, so everybody is just doing all kinds of Joker-related stuff. And half the time, it is not very good. But Sting was able to pull it off.
Yeah, no,
I'm 40. I'm 43 and likely the oldest guy here on this panel. So I grew up with Sting. Sting is my favorite wrestler all time. That's just how I am. 90 Sting, that Joker gimmick would not have worked. But
No.
Sting, over his time, learned how to talk. And that was a great thing. When he did those crazy Joker promos, he sounded incredible. He sounded real.
Okay, Mr. B-Roll, can you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
I need you to put up a poll right now. Let's
Okay.
put up a poll, and not a stripper poll, but a poll here talking
God
about.
damn it, I'm
like,
leaving.
I know. I keep teasing you. I'm sorry, brother. That's for after the show. Oh God, that was creepy. Anyways, I need you to put up a poll right now. I want to know everybody's opinions out there. What was your favorite era of Sting? Was it beach blonde-haired Sting? Was it Crow Sting? Was it Joker Sting? Was it Wolfpack Sting? So many great eras of Sting, and it's just so awesome. I think it was like such a gift that we got Joker Sting. But I want to know what you all think. What was your favorite Sting?
So we're going Surfer, Crow, Joker, Wolfpack.
Wolfpack. Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Let's go.
Listen,
That's right.
you know, if we're also if we get, and we're talking TNA too, I loved Main Event Mafia Sting.
Yeah,
I
let's
loved
put him in.
that he was like the head of this group that was full of heels, but he for some reason was a face at the top of this group. And I mean, he most of the time he didn't talk, but you
Okay.
knew that Sting was the head of that group.
The
He was the
Godfather.
leader. Yeah.
Well, all right,
Um,
let's ask this. Let me ask you guys this. What is the greatest faction? Maybe we should do this as the poll. The greatest faction in TNA wrestling. I mean, would you say Main Event Mafia? They're up there.
if you're asking me, that's what I'd go with. Yes, I think it's hard. I know that TNA's got a lot of groups that had more TNA originals in it, but I mean the Mafia had so many huge names. They had so many big moments. I love Booker T calling his own match while he's having the match
That was
during
hilarious.
Main Event Mafia. Like just so many moments,
God, that was great.
so many good matches.
So TNA literally on their YouTube channel, they literally just dropped a Main Event Mafia.
Yeah,
anthology.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
I
a
saw
2-hour long just overview of
And
their
my
entire
God,
run.
my favorite parts of that anthology are them beating people up and Booker T just kicking someone's ass as he's on the microphone.
Yeah, it was so good.
That was, oh God, that was great.
So good.
There's a segment where he's kicking Austin Creed's ass, and he's doing it in that weird,
Yeah, that old
British
timey
accent.
announcer voice.
yeah.
King Booker.
Booker had a Booker. I tell you what, that's another
Booker had an
guy.
interesting run because when
Yes.
he came in, he had the British accent, which
Yeah, he's
was
still coming off King
weird.
Booker. He's still
Yeah.
kind of doing that gimmick, and then but Booker had
Wasn't
an
he the
interesting
first
run.
Legends champion
Yes,
too?
they gave him his own title,
Yeah.
Yes, the
For no
Legends
reason.
title. Oh my God! It's like
which
okay,
became the TV title that was never on TV.
Oh God.
Yeah. You know somebody who had a run in TNA during these years who we have not talked about
RVD.
is Mick Foley.
And
that's
Mick,
a good. I was gonna say
Mick
Mick
and
Foley
Rick.
and RVD. Yeah, both those guys.
and
But Mick,
Yeah.
Flair.
but
I
Mick
think
was. You know what's crazy with Mick? I don't think people realize is Mick won the damn TNA title and held
He
it
was the
for,
TNA champion.
yeah.
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 All right,
I forgot that.
Your poll is now live.
All right, folks.
Your
let's hear
Sting
it.
one. Your
All right,
I
the Sting-
forgot that he won the TNA title.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we
I
talk
think-
about we talk about one-offs because you had Test there for a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I think that was mentioned.
Yeah.
Irish or somebody mentioned that earlier. Test was there. Yeah.
Rikishi showed up
Yeah, he was
as
there
Junior
for a hiccup.
Fatu.
Oh yeah,
Fatu,
he was
yeah.
Junior Fatu there, right? Yeah.
And then
Huh?
China during the whole Mick Foley run. She came
Yeah.
in middle.
Yeah,
China had her
China-
first, her
yeah.
last wrestling appearance for TNA.
And boy,
Speaking of,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
I was gonna say, speaking of RVD, I didn't think anyone could beat his WWF thing, but that whole effing show song was incredible.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're gonna get a little off topic, but still talking TNA. I'm gonna put you all on the spot right now. What was your favorite TNA theme of all time?
Christian Cage.
Oh yes,
No.
the playoff of
No,
the
no, no.
Evanescence song.
Mine was the AJ Styles theme. What was the singer?
Cages, yeah. Great. Great.
Which
Not-
version?
not-
The first
But
one?
not just his first version, but also who was the singer that they changed it to in Evil Ways? The Evil Ways one as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was great.
AJ had
So-
that heel run.
That was
Yeah, that was
great.
a great theme.
Mine is either Jeff Jarrett's
Blues. What was the name of it? Blues Saccharino is the name of the singer of it. Evil Ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
My
theme.
Evil Ways.
Jeff Jarrett's first theme song when he first came in during the weekly pay-per-views that he sang a song himself.
Oh, okay.
Or LAX.
Yeah.
Oh,
LAX
yeah,
is
LAX
good.
too. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I personally I have two. First and foremost, I gotta go because I love Disturbed. I know this was a playoff of it, but like Monty Brown's music. Ooh,
Monty Brown's
Yes.
theme song was great.
But my other one, personally, when I hear this, I still just get the feels. We find the defendants guilty. Give me some fucking Americans Most Wanted theme. Hell to the yeah. I love me some.
I think
AEW,
Monty Brown had the greatest where he's from thing ever. Because being
The
from the
Serengeti, baby.
is
From the
fucking
Serengeti.
badass.
Yeah.
I love the Abyss theme too, though.
Oh God, Abyss had a great one too. You know what? We mentioned this earlier. Can I just touch on this briefly on Abyss? Like, in those Asylum years, what the fuck was up with the denim? Like, I gotta know. Wrestletok Drip God, tell me, like, was that a wise choice for Abyss to be wearing the denim like vest thing?
Hey man, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like people wearing like street clothes in wrestling. There's very few people it works for. So I'm gonna say no.
It just didn't make
I'm gonna
sense.
say no. But I
Oh.
mean, it was better than, you know, when he was wearing like that all white jumpsuit when he went to the insane asylum for a little while.
Yeah.
So looks like we got a winner here, B-roll.
Yes, looks like we had a total of 4 votes, and Crow Sting was what took it.
That is the correct answer, by the way.
Honestly, I'm a kid at heart. I've got to go Surfer Sting was my favorite Sting of all time, but I get it.
The Crow is one of my all-time favorite movies, so I loved
Phenomenal movie.
The Crow Sting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's somebody I feel like we need to talk about that wasn't even a wrestler in TNA, but I think you need to bring up Jeremy Borash and how important
Thank
he
you.
was to these years.
Yeah.
Massively important. Like, yes, he was a ring announcer, but the stuff he was doing behind the scenes as a producer.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Phenomenal.
Oh, Jim.
I mean, he was basically Jeff Jarrett's right-hand man, and
Yes.
if Jeff Jarrett wasn't doing it, Jeremy Borash was doing it, especially when you're talking about, like, all of their production and setting up backstage segments and shit like that. I mean, that's what JB is known for in WWE now, is doing stuff like the Boneyard match and things like that, and he was doing that in TNA all these years. So,
And we're gonna go into deeper depth on that next week, talking about those cinematic. Like, we got it. We'll talk about that, of course. But, you know, that's something we haven't mentioned, Irish. I'm glad you brought it up. We got to talk about the announce team as well. And the very first incarnation, we got to give credit to credit's due, was Mike Tenay, and of course,
Don West.
the late
Don
great
West.
Don West, man. Which Don West, like, what's interesting, if y'all don't know who he is, like, look him up. He had a great run with as an announcer, but Don West come from like selling fucking baseball cards on QVC.
Yeah. He was not an announcer.
No,
Yeah.
he sold sports cards on QVC.
Yeah.
That's how I knew it from the early 90s. You know, the late night QVC show.
Yeah,
Sold
and for
baseball
him to go
cards for
on, and I
$10.
thought Tenay and West, to me, like, that's when I think of like TNA wrestling and matches, that's the fucking voices I hear in my head is Mike
Yes,
Tenay and
absolutely.
Don West.
The only thing that I hate about Don West run is the last one apart when they tried to turn him heel.
Yeah, made him Amazing Red's manager or something, didn't they?
No,
I don't think that, you know, in the 20 plus years that TNA and Impact have been around, that they have ever had another commentary team that was as connected to that company as them. They've had a lot of announcers come through there, but when I think TNA announce teams, it's one team and one team only, and it's Tenay and Don West.
That's
Yes.
110%. I totally agree. I mean, I look at them; they're like almost the, dare I say, the Jim Ross and Jerry
Yeah.
Lawler of
Lawler,
TNA.
yeah,
Absolutely.
They really
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I mean, and yes, Taz had a great run in there too, as well, with Mike Tenay.
Yeah.
You can't discredit him or anything like that, but it's just, for me, and like we're saying here, it's always Don West and it's always going to be Mike Tenay. And you know what's interesting with Mike Tenay too? What I thought was interesting about the TNA stuff was we had always known Mike as being like the straight, you know, analytic color commentator in WCW, right? And
Yeah.
like here in TNA, he really became like the voice of TNA and really was like telling stories and stuff.
Yeah, he got a bigger voice and whatnot. Gave more energetic self.
Yeah, I think so, and I think Mike Tenay was there for, good God, so many years. I mean, I can't even remember when Tenay finally left there. To be honest with you, which is interesting when you think back in hindsight. But I like Hambone saying to me, it's always going to be Dom West, and it's
I
always
think
going to
it was
be
during the
Mike
Hogan years he left, if I'm not mistaken.
probably. And I'm trying to think who replaced him with Taz. It was Taz and
Didn't Mark Madden come in for a
dear
hot minute?
God, I
And,
hope not.
Scott,
Well,
what
if
was
they
his name?
did,
Scott Hudson, that was early
Scott
on.
Hudson.
Yeah, they had them for a few shows. Yeah, early on in the first few pay-per-views, they would. Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Speaking of two guys who I think, when it comes to developing the younger talent, helping out in the early days, Shane Douglas and Chris Candido.
Thank you for saying that. I feel bad. I'm glad we're circling back to Chris Candido because, and man, you talk about heartbreaking. Like Chris Candido was on the cusp of like reinvigorating his career. This is a guy
Him managing the Naturals
busted his
was
fucking
amazing.
ass all of his career, and yes, the Naturals as a tag team. I don't think we mentioned, but didn't touch on them. Andy Douglas and Chase
Stevens.
Chase Stevens, yes.
Yeah.
Almost said Chase Owens there, but Chase Stevens. Those guys was awesome, multi-time tag team champions. But I loved it, like you say, when Chris Candido was managing them. And dude, they had some great entrance music as well.
They did.
Anyways,
If only Candido had stayed home that day, he'd probably still be here. You know what I mean?
That's the insane thing of how he passed. So, for those of you who don't know, Chris Candido was involved in a. So, this is something we haven't talked about either. The lockdown pay-per-views. What was innovative about these is this was where every single fucking match took place in a steel cage. So
lockdown match is something we should talk about. That match is.
We got to talk about that next for sure, brother. But with Candido, he was involved in a tag team match where he broke his leg essentially, and with a broken leg, it's just like, okay, you're gonna recover, whatever, But eventually, like he actually flew out, which you shouldn't do, folks. Ended up getting a blood clot, and that's what killed him. And it's such a fucking shame too, because he was literally about to like reignite his career, and like that was a guy who fucking deserved it so much. But R.I.P. to the late great Chris Candido, and yeah, we mentioned Shane Douglas too. I mean, Shane Douglas had a huge run or impact, if you will, in Impact Wrestling or TNA Wrestling at this time frame. But yes,
he was part of that Raven James Mitchell feud.
Oh yeah, that's right. All right, he worked as a backstage like interviewer, which he did. I thought he did a pretty good job with.
Yeah, I always liked him as a heel backstage guy.
But you mentioned it, Michael. Let's just go ahead and talk about another innovative match, the Lethal Lockdown, which was essentially war games just in one ring and a fuck ton of weapons and like people would climb on the top of the cage and do crazy shit. Like the spot with AJ where AJ puts a ladder on the top of the cage and gets on the top of the fucking ladder and jumps off. It's like, Jesus. But I do remember a lot of those Lethal Lockdown matches, especially in the early days too. And guys, I know we're jumping around here, but there's just so much awesomeness with TNA in these early years. That's one thing we forgot to really mention too, with the transition from the squared circle to the six sides.
Exciting ring,
which is another thing that set TNA apart from other companies at this time frame too. You didn't see that except for in Mexico.
If you listen to all the interviews from those guys, they hated that transition.
Yeah.
They hated the six-sided.
It made the ring the rope so tight, and it was hard for them to bounce off. It was hard for them to get their footing if they went to the top rope.
Yeah.
I was actually on my way home today. I was listening to Road Dogg's podcast, and they were doing an Ask Me Anything, and somebody had asked him about how he felt, when they switched over to the six-sided ring. And he's one of the very few who said that he didn't mind it once he got used to it. But yeah, mostly everybody said they hated it outside.
I was like, no, AJ despises it.
Yeah.
AJ fucking hated it, which is interesting because I thought he would have loved it. But, I can understand why, like with the rope situations and whatnot. So, we've talked about like a lot of greatness of TNA, but we would be remiss. We have to talk about this, unfortunately, the biggest black eye in probably TNA history. We're going to talk about the infamous Jeff Hardy Sting matchup at Victory Road. Of course, this is the night where Jeff Hardy is highly intoxicated and completely out of it to where he can't even fucking wrestle, essentially. But yet they put his ass out there and like had Sting like manhandle him and pin him in like a main event that lasted what 30 seconds or something. And the fucked up thing is, you would think they would scramble, add something to that, do something. No, it literally went off the air with that shit.
You know, one of the interesting things about that match, you know, I interviewed Eric Bischoff and I asked him about this match. And one of the things that he told me is, you know, he gets a lot of flack for that match because that was during the Hogan and Bischoff era, but he was not technically in charge at that time. But yet he is the one who made the call to go out there and end it. Because he said that he was standing in the back, he saw what was happening, and everybody who was in charge, just nobody was doing anything about it.
That's
so
because
he
the
just made
person
the
in
decision
charge
to
at the
look
time
out
is
there and stop it.
I almost went on a giant rant about the woman who was in charge at that time.
Well,
oh, Miss Dixie. And we're going to be talking about a lot more about her next week. But yes,
thank you.
Never should have been an on-screen character.
No.
She shouldn't have been in charge of a wrestling company. She just stayed in the oil business with her family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Dixie Carter years were rough. There was only one good thing that came out of the Dixie Carter years, and that was EC3.
I was going to say EC3, and we're going to highlight that here next week on Learning the Rope.
I liked Crimson.
I forgot about that. Crimson. Yeah. Whatever happened to him? That's an interesting.
He works for NWA.
He's still in NWA.
Oh, is he really there?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's still Crimson, too.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I do think I saw him on an NWA show once.
Yeah, but like it's NWA, so who cares?
Yeah.
Sorry, Billy. I love the Smashing Pumpkins, but your current NWA product is not as fun. Just saying.
Nope. Don't know who looks at that show and goes, "This is a good show to put on," but it ain't me.
People who agree with. You know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole, brother. Brother. But guys, you know, we've been talking a lot about the greatness of TNA, and that's kind of like what I want to close it out here with tonight. Because trust me, folks, we're gonna get into the downfall next week, but we're also gonna get into the resurrection, which is gonna be awesome. Trust me, because where TNA or Impact Wrestling is now. It's fucking awesome, and I just thank God that like they were able to survive.
All I heard was erection.
You perv. But guys, we've been talking a lot here tonight about like your favorite moments from this era, and that's kind of what I want to ask you. Like, what are some of these moments that we may not have mentioned yet that just stick out about Impact Wrestling? And I think that's a great way to start it, Irish. The ECW tribute show, Hard Justice. What were you guys' thoughts on that? Or Hardcore Justice, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like, you know, most hardcore wrestling fans of this time loved ECW. But I was not a big fan of the Hardcore Justice shows because at this point, I felt like it had already been done to death. Yeah. WWE had already done One Night Stand. One Night Stand was an amazing show, and it just felt like we just keep bringing up ECW and dredging it back up. It just wasn't good to me.
Yeah, and you kept on having those Shane Douglas hardcore homecomings. Like, the ECW shows were just.
I'm going to be 110% honest. Like, to me, ECW's first One Night Stand was the most perfect send-off you could have of any promotion.
Yeah.
And I think it should have been left at that. As much as I love ECW.
The only thing I feel great about with the Hardcore Justice is the reuniting of the Gangsters.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I like me some Mustafa Saeed.
Yeah, and old.
So seeing him back on TV was cool. But
I don't know, like it wasn't. I don't think it was bad, but I felt like the Hardcore Justice show was like 3 years too late almost. That's the best way I can say.
You know who we didn't talk about, though? That resurrected his career in TNA? Rhino.
Oh, Oh, that's a good one. Let's.
Also, a
Because you
former
asked him-
TNA World Champion. Or
Because
NWA.
you talked about moments we didn't talk about. Rhino goring Abyss through the wall.
Oh yeah, Rhino had a great run there too, and like I'll never forget. I think Rhino, I would say, other than him winning the first ECW title, maybe the greatest night of his career was. I think it was that.
NWA.
I think it was the first Bound for Glory,
Yeah.
where literally he wins a Monsters Ball match.
He wins a battle
wins a
royal.
battle royal to become #1 contender, and he beats Jeff Jarrett all in the same night to win the NWA championship.
Yeah.
I mean, Rhino had a hell of a run there. Not, we were talking Christian earlier. I think honestly, that was probably my favorite feud in TNA of Christian's was Rhino against Christian.
Oh yeah,
That was awesome. You can't forget about the 8 Mile street fight they had. Oh man. But I do think I want to talk about this one. I think to me personally, a lot of great feuds, rivalries throughout the years of TNA, but to me, honestly, my favorite, I love the rivalry between Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. Like that was just I was salivating when they I mentioned this earlier, when they brought Kurt in, and when the fact of the matter, oh yeah, by the way, he's going to feud with Samoa Joe to start off with. It was a wrestling fan's wet dream come true. I'm telling you, I was just oh my God, this is going to be
fucking talk about how, TNA gave Kurt Angle all the belts at once.
Yeah.
All the belts. He
and
held
also,
every title that was there for man.
Not only
At the
that,
same
too,
time.
Hambone. He also, I believe, at the same time, held the IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
Oh, yeah. Well, I forgot about that. You are right.
And I think they did a pay-per-view. It may have been
They did a show in Japan.
Oh, TNA. Oh, yeah. Well, what, yeah. Are you talking later years, or are we talking with Kurt Angle?
Kurt.
Okay, well, Kurt, I know, was on an early incarnation of Wrestle Kingdom, too. And I believe he wrestled Yuji Nagata, if memory serves me correctly. But I, what you were talking about with all the belts, I remember, I think it was a pay-per-view or something where literally he put the tag titles, he put the X Division title, he put the world title all on the line in the same night.
Yeah.
But I think, to me, me personally, my favorite matchup between Joe and Angle, it was the very first matchup, but a very close second was years later when they had that match at Lockdown, where it was in the cage, and it was Angle was coming not to fuck around. This was I'm gonna be an MMA fighter, pretty much, and that match was stiff as fuck. And ultimately, Samoa Joe winning his first TNA World Title too happened on that night. Which was long overdue. But that to me is one of my favorite things. What about you, Hambone? Is there anything we haven't mentioned here that you think you just really loved? And it doesn't even have to be just something that sticks out for you that you thought was a great moment in time with TNA.
I wouldn't say anything that we haven't already talked about, but for me, my favorite moment or run of these years is that Raven run, because I was such a huge fan of his, and I honestly feel like Raven's original TNA run is the best run of his career ever. It was when he was used the best. He was treated as a top guy. He was in great shape at that time. Just everything about that run, I look back on very fondly.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. What about you, Michael?
That Raven run, and also I know they're known as WWE guys, but Team 3D's run in TNA, just phenomenal. The matches that I will go on, some their TNA matches, a lot of them are or not surpass their WWE matches. Their feuds with AEW, LAX. They brought in Brother Runt for some of these matches. We got
Brother Runt
every once in a while. Spike's another one who had short runs but phenomenal matches. He had matches with Abyss and Raven where he was killing himself.
Then a Monsters Ball with them, and Samoa Joe as well, I believe, was in that match. Yeah.
But that Team 3D run is phenomenal.
You know, one thing I would like to mention we didn't really touch on was a rivalry, but boy, oh boy, was this fucking intense because of the real life implications. Jeff Jarrett,
Kurt
Angle.
Angle.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Oh yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
angle that I like to forget because of how awkward it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're watching it, and you're just like, oh damn, they're going there, man. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
almost too far.
Yeah, that's when pro wrestling gets on the not good to me. It's like, bringing in real life shit's not my cup of tea.
But I will say this: I think like they kept it very professional between the two, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
did have
Yeah.
some great matches together.
Yeah. And let's be honest, I mean, Karen Angle was a great fucking heel at this time. It was so easy to hate her.
Fucking annoying, but yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
If you want to talk somebody who is appropriately named, it's
what
Karen
is it
Angle.
about if you're like with Jeff Jarrett or something, like you just get this magnetism of just like being a
It's
great
true.
fucking heel? Like, how is that?
Speaking of people with Jeff Jarrett and the X Division, someone who I think that needs to be talked about in the last few minutes, the player from the Himalayas.
So
Yeah. They do, yeah.
More wrestling fans just know him as this manager. But like Sanjay Dutt was a phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Oh, he was-
cornerstone of TNA during these years,
Of the
absolutely.
X Division, and
Yeah.
Michael, correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think he ever won the X Division title.
Not
did he?
one time.
Yeah.
That dude threw on match after match and never won that title once.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, it really is when you think about it, because he was a fucking awesome worker, man. Like the player from the Himalaya, man. And I loved his entrance music too, by the way.
Yes, and he had great technical matches. He was a high flyer, and he can do the comedy stuff.
Yeah. He was
Like-
he was like a jack of all trades, man. He really was. You know, something we didn't mention here too, and this is kind of in the earlier years of TNA. This is another memory that sticks out to me. You got to talk about when TNA invaded the WWE.
I was hoping someone because that
Yes.
video package with Shane, Abyss, and Ron and BG is just phenomenal.
Yes, where they show and Tracy, where they show up with cookies. Now, to kind of give you a backstory here, of course, this is back in TNA was filming in Orlando, but just so happened to be at the same time the WWE was there filming a commercial for the Royal Rumble in 2005. And so they just showed up like with camera in hand, and there is some footage. It's blurred, but Rey Mysterio does show up. Like
Ray and Eddie both show up
yes,
because I know
Yeah.
Eddie like the back of my hand, and he throwing up that West Coast, and
Yeah. and I love how BG James is talking like, we need to get to catering. We need some mahi mahi. Like he's just going on and on about the mahi mahi, man. But that
BKM,
was Luke.
Got
Yes.
some wild promos.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
kind of touched about them. Now, if you don't know, PKM was, in fact, the New Age Outlaws, essentially. But they called them the Voodoo Kin Mafia. But pay extra attention, folks,
That was
for the
their
initials.
third name.
FKM. Wink, wink. That's some
They're
good
coming
shit, pal.
They're coming out in prosthetics looking like Triple H and Shawn Michaels.
Oh, my God. that
Oh
was
God, I
hilarious.
forgot about that.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that's the promo you were talking about because they came out with the big nose.
They
and the
They cut a
bowl.
lot of fucking promos against
Yes.
WWE at that time.
Yes.
I mean, that
Like,
was pretty much their whole gimmick was, I hate
Oh.
WWE.
Yeah.
yeah. Pretty much. And amazingly enough, they got jobs back again with them years later.
That's because they got Creed and apologized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
this is true.
I know we're wrapping it up here, fellas, but I have to jump off now because my phone is very close to dying. So I don't think
Well,
I'm
real
making
quick,
a couple more
before
minutes.
you head out,
Yep,
Hambone, why don't you give us a little plug of Palooza?
You can find me on Twitter at notorious_bone. You can find me on Instagram under my shoot name, Thomas.Cummings920. And you can find me on TikTok right here, Hambone, couple A's, couple O's. That's where I'm at.
Do it. Follow the man. Well, brother, we appreciate you coming on tonight. And
No
thanks
problem.
for
Have
talking
fun.
TNA.
Always appreciate being asked to be on. And I definitely, if you want, I would be down to be on next week too, because I love Impact right now where it is as a company, and I would love to talk about them right now, because I agree with you guys that Impact right now is very much slept on, and if you're not watching it, you should be watching it. So
Consider it booked, brother.
Secretly, he's not getting off because his phone's dying. He's going to watch Impact.
I mean, we are like an hour into it right now.
That's right.
I gotta go watch some Speedball. Come on.
Hell yeah, brother.
Well, that's a dope shirt.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's pretty awesome. All right, brother. Well, you have a good night, man. And hey, we'll see you next week.
All right, guys. Nice hanging with you.
Thank you, my friend. But in closing, like I say, we're wrapping her up here. Michael, I got to ask you like one last time. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I want to know your personal favorite TNA moment from this time frame of these 10 years we've talked about here tonight.
My favorite TNA moment?
Yeah, your favorite of all time.
Oh, Eel Skipper rocking the cage.
It's a damn good one. It's hard to beat, man.
Like, I can watch that moment 100 times in a row because that athletic ability is amazing of the guy. I think Alex Skipper should have been a bigger star than he was.
Oh, yeah. And I think if you asked me to put together some matches for TNA this time frame, I'm going to say Unbreakable, that triple threat, but right there, right number 2, AMW and Triple X in that cage match. Matter of fact, B-roll, you want a homework assignment?
Bring it
I
on.
love it when you do
Let's
this.
Let's give him some homework, Michael. So let's go. You've already watched Unbreakable. Let's give him some matches he needs to watch. First and foremost, you need to watch
first
that
X
Turning
Division
Point.
title match.
Oh, with Loki and Jerry Lynn and AJ.
AJ and Juventud.
Oh, I thought it was a 3-way. Was it just AJ and Hoovy?
Yeah. No, it's like a 5-way, like elimination style match.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to give you a hidden gem. I'm going to throw at you. AJ Styles and Abyss in the 6 Sides of Steel from the very first lockdown.
Okay.
That is a great one. Here's another. I'm thinking hidden gems now in TNA. I got one more for you, and this is a guy we haven't talked about.
It's the first X Division championship match. AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn, Loki, and Psychosis.
Oh, it was a 4-way. Okay.
It's the 4-way elimination match from their 3rd pay-per-view.
Okay. That's a good one.
I'm going to send that to you, Brett.
I was going to say, and Michael, you're going to have to help me out here because, good God, I can't think of his name in TNA his brief run. But I was thinking Kurt Angle against Nigel McGuinness. What was Nigel's name there? Desmond Wolfe, wasn't it?
Yeah, Desmond Wolfe.
Yeah, Desmond Wolfe against Kurt Angle. That's another one you should watch. Great fucking matchup.
I'm going to find some when I get off here, and I'm just going to send them the B-roll.
I think that's a wonderful.
Oh, he's already sent me one.
There you go. There you go.
Because Impact's got freaking Joe versus AJ from Turning Point 05.
Yeah,
that's another one I would say you need to watch that one for sure. Man, there's so damn many. We mentioned LAX against Daniels and AJ, the 6 Sides of Steel from Lockdown. Or no, that was from Bound for Glory.
Yeah,
that's a good one. A personal one of mine, I kind of mentioned this earlier, the 8 Mile Street Fight between Rhino and Christian Cage from Bound for Glory is another good one. Man, there's so many. Mr. B-Roll, you've got hours upon hours of Impact Wrestling to watch.
Bound for Glory, Sting versus Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, and at least I can say it's at the tip of a finger. So that's the lovely.
Only for just $9.99 a month if you get Impact's what's it called again? Impact Plus. Impact Plus.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but they do have a bunch of matches for free on their YouTube.
Yeah, they do.
They literally just drop random matches every once in a while on their YouTube.
I think honestly, like Hambone was saying earlier, if you just want like access to like the majority of the library of what they put up there, you can only pay like $1. Or something like that. It's if you want to get into their premium or pay-per-views, whatever they call them. I can't remember what Impact calls them, but you have to pay that $9.99 or whatever it is.
But I'm telling you, I think it's worth even just paying the $9.99. Honestly, I mean the $1 is a tremendous deal, but I think it's worth getting the $9.99 so you can see those shows. Because hell, on one of those shows, that's what we were talking about. The last one they did, and I apologize again, I can't remember the damn name, but that's where Alex Shelley won the Impact World title.
It
was on one of those shows. Was it
Against all odds.
Okay.
Against all
Yes.
odds.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah.
There's so much amazing action, and we've talked about. I know there's some stuff we've probably left out here tonight, but hey, we got another week where we're going to be covering Impact Wrestling. Now, granted, we're going to kick it off next week, and it's going to be a little rough, but you're going to want to stick around because there's a tremendous redemption story with what Impact Wrestling is now. But we've come to the conclusion of the first part of our episode here on Impact Wrestling's history. And, of course, as we always close it out, we got to get one more plug-a-palooza in. Of course, you know where our good friend Hambone, where to find him. Michael, tell us where we can find you, brother.
MJDuplessis 1992 on TikTok.
The tiki-taki.
I am a few hundred away from 2,000 followers.
Let's go. Let's get him there. Let's get him there, and let's also get XLJ, the OG, to 1,000. And
you're still not at 1,000 yet.
I know, right? I'm slacking, but we'll get there at some point.
Okay, we got to do work on that.
Yes, let's do it.
Yes, he's getting close. He's like at 888. So he's getting close.
I would have been doing more work on that.
He's almost there, but also, so huge shout out to Hambone. Huge shout out to MJDuplessis joining us.
By the way, Mantar is on TikTok now.
Mantar follows me on TikTok too. Shout out to Mantar. I love me some Mantar.
Okay, somebody needs to send me this.
I got that notification this morning.
But also, shout out to Mid-South for being the surprise guest on here. He did have some technical difficulties towards.
Yeah, and we'll try to get him back here. And Michael, you want to come back next week and finish this convo?
If I have time to, I will. I'll let you know.
Let's do it, brother. So, well, and as we mentioned earlier on Cole TV right now, you can catch a replay of Pro Wrestling 60 from this past Monday, as well as you can get our good friend Light Skin Gaijin's report on Stardom Wrestling's Sunshine event, as all available right now on Cole TV. And hey, you'll be able to catch a replay of Learning the Ropes as well.
Yes, I can definitely say this too, as far as Cole TV goes. We have some big things cooking and coming. So you're going to want to stay tuned. Schedule may not look exactly the same, but it's because we have these.
Let's just say this.
Tremendous.
We're going to go all out for Cole TV. And I'll just leave it at that.
I'm going to go with a super cheap plug here as well. So we haven't talked about this publicly, but heck, we're live, we got 4 viewers left with us. If you have not already subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Long story short, YouTube has changed their
monetization
rules. You actually only have to have 500 subscribers now,
and we are only 40 or 52 away, I think.
Yeah, 52 away.
Sorry to interrupt. Breaking news. Mark Briscoe versus Claudio Castagnoli for the Ring of Honor championship at Death Before Dishonor.
Oh, let's fucking go. Yeah.
Put the belt on him. Put it on him.
Fucking belt on him. Yes.
It's not going to happen, but
it's going to happen. We're going to manifest it into happening, damn it.
I opened up my Facebook and it's the first thing I saw.
Okay. That's right. Breaking news. Our buddy Michael just broke it, man. You are going to get Mark Briscoe against Claudio Castagnoli at Death Before Dishonor. So it's happening. It's going to happen. But like seriously, yeah, like B-Roll's saying, we're really close. But I would seriously, from the bottom of my heart, bottom of his heart, we want to thank all of our subscribers. Like, it's amazing to us still to this day. Like, we all 448 of you. We thank you so much for the love and the support, and especially a shout out to all of our Wrestletok family as well. All the creators, everybody who's been a part of Cole TV and just the development over. It's hard to believe we're almost we'll be hitting 2 years coming up this September. It doesn't feel like it, man. Just time flies when you're having fun, and that's what this whole experience has been. And we just continue to go onward and upward. But I got to tell you, none of that is possible without all of you. So seriously, thank you all. We love you all. And on that note, I think that's going to wrap it up here for us tonight on Learning the Ropes. And don't forget to tune in next week as we're going to finish up our conversation on the history of Impact Wrestling. Mr. B-Roll, will you play us out, my friend?
We'll see you next week, folks.
See you next.